Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar, Lunches They'll Love and Other Back-to-School Tips. I am Marta Human, a registered dietitian and Wegmans Nutritionist, and I'm really excited to be moderating today's webinar. Please note that the information provided during today's webinar is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for medical advice, medical nutrition therapy, or individualized nutrition counseling. I'm going to be rejoining you at the end to moderate our Q&A. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our presenter, my terrific coworker, Kirby Branciforte. Take it away, Kirby.
Thank you, Marta, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. I don't know that I've ever been so excited to share a topic because I am in the trenches with you. This fall will be the first year that I actually have to pack all three of my boys' lunches. So I am definitely going to be putting into use the tips that I'm going to share with you today. And the last thing I want to do is give you an overwhelming list of things to do, because I know we're all about to get like the school supply list, and there's going to be a whole rush of activity before school starts. So I want to let you be assured that what we share today, you can put into action pretty immediately. So whether you're joining us live and you're just trying to get the last out of those precious moments of summer, or if you're watching on demand and you're just trying to kind of right the ship, we've got you. So we know that in addition to wanting just lunch ideas, that you also want to make sure that they are as healthy as possible. So I'm going to start there. The easiest way to think about making a meal healthy is to really think about a balanced meal. A balanced meal is one that has 3 or more food groups. So each of these food groups that you see listed here has its own nutrition profile, which means it has different types and different amounts of nutrients, including those that are needed for growth and development. So when you're thinking about kids' nutrition. So when you include just 3 different food groups, you're automatically getting a wide array of vitamins, of minerals, of plant compounds, all without having to kind of micromanage your nutrient intake. So instead of thinking about nutrients, we're going to think about food groups. And we want to make sure that at least one of those is a fruit or a veggie. That's because the recommendation is to get 5 cups a day. It's really tough to do that if you're not including them at all or most of your meal. So be thinking about those 3 food groups and including a fruit or a veggie. Now, the visual that you see here is just an example. It's one way that you can build a balanced meal, but it can definitely be flexible. So if you're in the mood for fruit at lunch, those veggies could be your fruit, and you could definitely switch up the different food groups. So that's totally fine. Just remember 3 food groups, making sure one's a fruit or a veggie. Now, if you just took one thing away from today, I sure hope you take away more, but if you just took one thing away, think about this balanced meal concept, because much of the stress that we feel around lunches and meals in general comes from just like making the decision and getting started. So knowing that you need to find a fruit or a veggie and 2 other food groups really kind of starts you off on the right foot, starts you off strong. So we are going to share some non-sandwich lunch ideas with you in a minute, because I know so many of you want that inspiration. But I first want to point out that there's no reason a sandwich can't be part of a nutritious, balanced meal. You already have 2 food groups like off the bat, right? You've got a grain and usually a protein. And maybe you've got 3 or 4 if you're throwing some veggies or maybe some cheese in there. And it's easily balanced with a side of fruits and or veggies. So really a great start. Now, if you're looking to boost the nutrition of your sandwiches, think about including a whole grain bread. Use hummus for a spread, or work tuna into your rotation so you get some seafood in there. And if your kids, when your kids are tired of it, cut it into shapes with your cookie cutters, or try a variation like a pita or a wrap. So sandwiches are a go-to for a reason. They're easy, and we want easy, right? So much is difficult, we want easy. And they can be balanced. So I want folks to feel good about those sandwiches, because that's usually where we start from. So now let's move on to our lunch inspiration for when you get that inevitable request of, can you send me something besides a sandwich? We'll see how long it takes my sons to ask for that. So we're going to start off with pasta plus. So we're starting with pasta, which gets a bad rap, to be honest. But we love it for a lot of reasons, and I want to kind of walk through those with you. So first of all, kids love pasta. Most kids do. I know kids have different tastes, but most kids really love pasta. So just out the gate, including something that they enjoy is a really great way to help them feel seen and heard, and it makes lunch a little bit more fun for them. It's also a really great way to use up leftover pasta if you have any of that laying around before you have to toss it. It's also a vehicle for other foods, especially those that you might want to help your kids get more familiar with or that they might be hesitant to try. And I think of this like going to a party. So if you show up at a party and you see like nobody that you know, you feel a little uncomfortable and maybe you're not that willing to talk with others, right? You feel a little bit like you want to stay in the corner. But if you see one person who you know and actually enjoy their company, all of a sudden it's more comfortable and maybe you're more likely to talk with others and mingle. And pasta is a great way to think of, or that's a great way to think about pasta. So it makes those other foods like slightly more approachable. So there are also, when we think about nutrition, there are whole grain pastas, but most or many pastas are actually enriched, which means there are nutrients added to them. And many of those nutrients are really essential for growth and development. So things like iron, which is really important for transporting energy through your body, and B vitamins, which are helping with turning your food into energy. They're part of metabolism and they're really important for brain development and health. So really essential nutrients for growth and development during this stage of life. So if you want to give it a little bit more of a nutrition boost, make sure you're thinking about adding those veggies and a variety of different proteins. So maybe something like a turkey meatball or pieces of chicken, or your plant proteins like beans or tofu, and certainly something like seafood. And because you want a little bit of moisture there, maybe mix it with olive oil or an oil-based dressing to get in some heart-healthy fats. That can also help keep the kids fuller longer with adding a little bit of fat, or a veggie-based sauce, so maybe like a tomato sauce. And then making sure you're, again, balancing it with that side of fruits or veggies. So really can get a lot of good nutrition and in a very kid-friendly way with this pasta plus. Variations, just to keep it fun, because we'll always hit some ruts, right? Ideas that you might consider are something like a breakfast pasta. So mixing in a turkey or a pork breakfast sausage, maybe some eggs. That actually works really well with ramen noodles. Or taking a typical green leafy salad and putting in pasta instead. So one thing, it travels a little bit better than the leafy greens, and it's going to make it so maybe the kids are a little bit more interested in the toppings, like your eggs or your turkey and your veggies, and you can toss in some like Italian dressing or something. And anything you do with pasta, you can also do with like a rice or lentils or quinoa. So changing up the base to get a little bit more maybe whole grain or beans in there. So a lot of fun you can have with this one, and it's not a sandwich. Next one is a parfait. So this is a fan favorite in my house. My boys love parfaits. I hope that continues to be the case because it's been kind of a solid go-to for us. So lots of reasons we like this. One is that it's a really great vehicle for those fruits and whole grains. So off the bat, you're getting 3 food groups in there, which is great. And the fruit and the whole grains are going to give you some fiber and antioxidants, other nutrients for gut health, brain health, heart health, all the stuff that we want, especially while the kids are growing. And that combo of fiber and then the protein helps to keep the kids fuller longer, so keeping hunger at bay. And speaking of that protein, this is a really nice kind of kid-friendly way to get protein in there. So I know a lot of folks are looking for ideas for protein for kids. This is a great go-to, especially because some of the traditional proteins, like if you think of your animal proteins, like a piece of meat can be tougher to chew. So this is nice and easy. And if you do want a little bit more protein, you can maybe consider a Greek yogurt. Those tend to be higher. And of course, with the dairy, we love that calcium for bone growth and development. So this is sounding pretty good, right? I'm convinced. And then other nutrients that are in there that you might not see on the label are B12. B12, again, I mentioned those B vitamins are so essential for the development of your central nervous system, especially in those early years. And it also gives you a little bit of zinc, which is important for immune system health and function. We're about to send the kids into what we lovingly call the petri dish, right? So anything we can do to support that system is A+. So pun intended completely there. So if you want to give it a little bit of a nutrition boost, think about adding in some ground chia or flax. Surprisingly, as long as you don't put in too much, once you mix that in, you don't notice a change in the texture at all. So it's a nice way to add just a tiny little bit of protein, fiber, and heart-healthy fats. And whenever you can, to consider a yogurt lower in added sugar. Added sugar is one of those nutrients that we're always looking to limit. And in yogurt, it's kind of nice to start introducing that less sweet type of experience to the kids. And we have a really wonderful less sugar Greek yogurt that you see pictured here that we personally get a lot and really enjoy. And sticking with this theme, you can do some variations on the parfait, still using some of the same ideas. So a cottage cheese, that pineapple cottage cheese, you could make a parfait with that, still get your dairy. And ricotta. I love using ricotta in this way because, sometimes you have recipes that leave this like strange amount of ricotta. And it's like, what am I going to do with this? So it actually works really well for a parfait. I usually add a little maple syrup or honey and some cinnamon and you're good to go. If you have a little bit of extra time, you throw it in the food processor and it makes it super creamy. So that's a really fun way to do this. Or you could flip it around a little bit and have your base as oatmeal instead of the granola and mix your yogurt in. Then you might still be looking for a little bit of crunch. So maybe considering a nut, something like a sliced almond is fun. So you get some crunch in there and then you're adding some heart-healthy fats and some fiber. So a lot of nutrition that you can pack into this parfait. Lots of fun there. Now our last one, we're going to call this snack attack. So instead of thinking about like your main dish and then your sides, think about lunch as a snack. So interestingly, I have asked my kids before, like, it's time for lunch, and they'll say, I don't want lunch. I'll say, well, you want a snack instead? And they're like, yeah. So I'll take their lunch and I'll put it into snack portions. And now it's like the bee's knees. So we like this because the kids love it. There's something about those smaller portions that's less intimidating. So it's a little bit more approachable, feels like fun, feels like a snack. So that's really great for the kids. And it also is easy to kind of keep it fresh and to use what you have on hand because you can just put kind of whatever in there. Right now we have zucchini coming out of our ears in our garden. So that's something I might consider throwing in here raw with maybe a hummus or something like that. So it's also great for using up your leftovers or foods that maybe are almost gone that don't feel like a full portion. I don't know about you, but we always have random amounts of like, I've got 3 crackers left and we have 2 grapes and a strawberry. So this is perfect for that type of thing, kind of extending your food and your food dollar in that way. So a lot of fun that you can have with this. And when we're thinking about that kind of nutrition boost, just remembering that balanced meal concept. So just because it feels like a snack doesn't mean we're going to forget about those meal concepts. So making sure you're getting those 3 food groups and making sure you've got a fruit or a veggie in there and really focusing on variety here. So one variety of textures, right? Just because that's nice for the kids, the actual eating experience, but a variety of colors because that variety of colors signals a variety of nutrients. So it's just a really fun, easy way when you mix up the colors to know you're getting a variety of nutrients without having to overthink it. Not that any of us do that, right? So lots of fun that you can have with these. A lot of variations, kind of thinking about themes, right? So like maybe you do a charcuterie one day. You could do a pizza theme. So if you send in some pizza sauce, a cracker, they can make their own little pizzas. Or game day, we're about to head into football season. So if you've got any of those game day snacks, there's lots of them that work well for this. Whole grain tortilla chips, guacamole and salsa, those count as your fruits and veggies. So again, you can have so much fun with this. And the key for these is to have those containers. So thinking about having those lunch boxes with compartments and small containers with lids, if you want to send dips or sauces or spreads or things like that. And if you only want to have one container for lunches, you don't need to have a separate one. You can make these work with all of those other meal ideas as well. So you can have a lot of fun. Just make sure you've got the tools so that you can be successful. So when you get to the point where you feel like you're in a rut, just kind of fall back on these ideas, these lunch ideas. So you're going to take a breath and you're going to just say, okay, am I going to do a sandwich? We're going to do the pasta, the parfait, or we're going to go for that kind of snack idea. And then use the balanced meal approach to start filling in the blanks with whatever you have on hand, because these don't have to look a certain way every time. Just use what you have on hand and fall back on that kind of formula. So you're taking some of the stress out of the decision making. Now, those are some lunch ideas. And there's plenty more that we could share, but this should get you started. But we know that those back to school vibes don't stay in the classroom, right? They follow us all the way home. They join us at the dinner table, and we've got a whole, shake up to our routine, and we become very busy. So let's talk about some strategies that are going to help you stay steady, get in that nourishment so you can have all of the energy that you need during this time of the year and of life. So for breakfast and dinner, so for those other two meals, we're going to stick with that balanced meal approach. It's not just for lunches. So we're still going to think about including 3 different food groups. My recommendation here is to make sure that you're mixing up the food groups that you're having. So if you had fruit for lunch, make sure you're getting veggies at dinner. And if you already had some grains earlier, maybe you think about throwing in something else in its place. So maybe that will be dairy at one point. So just making sure you're getting a lot of variety in the foods and the food groups, but sticking with that 3 food groups, 1 being a fruit or a veggie. And being flexible, AKA give yourself a break. So if you are super busy and you've got to do frozen pizza, can that be balanced? Absolutely. So there is no reason you can't make a balanced meal with frozen pizza. You've got a food group there for sure. You've got some grain, and maybe you've got some dairy with the cheese. Just make sure you're balancing it out with maybe a salad or, frozen broccoli or orange slices, whatever it is that's going to work for you, your family, your schedule, all of the things. So we can make a balanced meal out of so many different foods. So just fall back on this idea and feel really good about yourself. And don't forget that no cook is okay. We do not need to be gourmet cooks cooking from scratch. Any of those lunch ideas are going to work just fine for dinner. So if they work well at one point in the day, there's no reason that you can't have those for another meal as well. And then we're going to think about snacks. So snack time is like prime time to get in food groups that you might have missed. So thinking about things like whole grains, those are really great. You're thinking about providing energy and supporting brain health. Dairy, again, is going to be so important for the kiddos with their, as they're building their strong teeth and bones and muscles and all of that. Your fruits and veggies, those colors, the colorful fruits and veggies are giving you so many nutrients for growing a healthy body. And nuts and seeds, again, fiber and heart-healthy fats. These are all really wonderful foods that provide nutrients for growth and development. Here you see some fun ideas that work well for snacks. But you could do any combination of these, just trying to fill in the gaps. So all of these meals and snacks, though, what I want to take a moment to recognize is that this is not to the exclusion of other foods. You can have, like, if your kid's like, I want a cookie with lunch, that is not, we are not saying don't send that. We're saying start with this foundation and then add all of those other favorites or other foods alongside it. So the idea here is to create that kind of a foundation of balance and variety. And pro tip, be prepared. You're going to do a whole lot of work. You're going to put so much into this, and they might not eat it, right? That's never happened, has it? No. But be prepared for them not to eat it, and that is okay. They're not going to be experts at this. This is not going to look like perfection. It's just like how they're learning in school. They're learning new things. They're learning this too. They're learning to adopt a healthy pattern of eating. They're learning what they do like, what they don't like, what makes them feel good. So your job right now is laying the foundation. Show them what a healthy pattern of eating looks like. Later in life, you'll see the fruits of that labor. And I'm going to share with you at the end a resource that kind of takes a deeper dive into that idea, but just know it's okay. So as you get started here, this is just a quick list of foods you might consider stocking, or give yourself credit because I bet you have a lot of these or a version of these already on hand. So as you see, we've got a collection of like kid-friendly foods that give you fruits and veggies, your lean proteins, your seafood, your whole grains, your nuts, your seeds, your dairy, your beans, your legumes. And like I said, you probably have some version of these already on hand. Now you can obviously grow your grocery list beyond this, but these are super simple, super simple, super affordable, quick, easy, and sometimes I think they might not get the credit they deserve because it's kid food. How healthy can it be, right? But these give you those food groups that we talked about. They give you that variety of nutrients that are needed for growth and development, and they can easily be added to any meal or snack. And by the way, all of these, there's no reason that the adults can't enjoy these too, right? So here you see a couple of examples of those things that work really well for lunches, but really, these are just easy to fall back on. And again, simple, easy, and the kids love them. Last thing I want to show you is our resource that I mentioned earlier. If you go to wegmans.com/feelyourbest, or from our homepage, wegmans.com, you can click on health and nutrition at the top, and then you'll scroll to the balanced meals and nutrition section. Click on life stages and phases, and there you will find kids at the table. That explores that childhood feeding kind of philosophy and gives you more on that. But if you click on the school lunches and snacking at the top, it's going to bring you to this section. So the first and the third, those are activity sheets, lunchbox builder and eat a rainbow. Those you can print off, and the kids can help build a balanced lunch. They can pick the fruits and veggies that are going to help them eat a rainbow, variety of colors. And one of the keys to getting kids excited about food is to get them involved. So if they sit down and they do this with you, they're going to be more likely to eat what you send. I'm not promising it, I'm not guaranteeing it, but they're going to be more likely. And then that middle one, snack with the power of 3, that is a brochure that gives a wonderful list of different snack ideas just to get you, again, out of that kind of snacking rut, and also give some really fun swaps for some traditional snacks. So really hope that you have some time to explore this resource, because again, it's just so much fun, diving deeper into childhood feeding, getting the kids involved, and just trying to have fun with it. That's kind of the key. So with that, I think we have plenty of time for questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was so exciting and interesting to hear. So one of the questions we got a lot was about allergies. So, food allergies. So thinking about nuts and those kinds of things. So could you talk a little bit about maybe some safe snacks and lunches?
Yeah, so I'm not surprised that we got that question, because we know that so many classrooms now are nut-free or allergen-free. So while I appreciate that folks probably want a list of foods, they want us to give a list of here's the things that you can bring that are school safe or nut-free. There's a reason that we can't really do that. So I'm going to explain the reason and then kind of give you a tip for trying to at least steer clear of certain foods. So food allergies are life-threatening. And because that's the case, we follow the lead of expert organizations such as FAIR, which is Food Allergy Research and Education. And they guide individuals with food allergies to how to avoid their allergens. But then the decision about what food is safe for them rests with the individual in consultation with their healthcare provider. So we are in a position where we can say these will be safe for people with food allergies. What we can do is follow their lead and tell people how to avoid at least the top 9 allergens. So the top 9 allergens are required by law on packaged foods to be listed in an allergen statement. So that's thing number 1. Look at the allergen statement, and if you see peanuts or tree nuts or nuts of any kind, that is one that you'd want to avoid for a nut-free classroom. For Wegmans brand products, we actually have an allergen key. It's like a little green dot, and it's a little bit quicker glance look to show people like this has one of the top 9, take a look. So the approach is really, here's the foods to avoid, but that decision about the safety and appropriateness of the food really rests with the food allergic individual. So we really kind of just go that route to help people avoid them. So I will say though, if you are trying to send like a PB&J and you want something besides peanut butter, we do have a sunflower butter that is fantastic. That's made from sunflower seeds. So that could potentially be an option to consider. And it is so good. It is so good. So that's one thought.
Excellent. Now, in the questions here, we got 3 of them actually, about the yoga parfaits. Everybody's loving those yoga parfaits, but they're wondering how do they transport them, and what if there isn't refrigeration?
Oh
and
my God.
Somebody suggested a thermos for the parfait. I thought that was a great idea.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I'm so glad somebody asked that, because I learned the hard way. Tip number 1, do not put the granola in the parfait, because that came back as a sloppy mess when I tried it, because the granola gets all soaked up. So what we do, I have separate containers with a lid. So I'll do the yogurt in its own container. I do the fruit in its own container, and I do the granola. I'll usually put that in like a little baggie. I like that for so many reasons. One is it keeps it clean, but also kids like different proportions of their parfait. I've learned one of my kids loves just a bonkers amount of granola. The other one doesn't want barely any, so they can build it on their own. And then a thermos that keeps it cool, or just a good old fashioned ice pack. That's really what we send with it. So I know a lot of folks don't have refrigeration, so we have lunch boxes that we can send an ice pack in. So I hope that helps, because that's what I do. So
yeah, excellent.
It works for you all.
And now let's talk about picky eaters, because I had a daughter who ate like 5 things until she was about 18 years old. And now she's 27 and she eats everything. So she did get over it. But
more than 5.
Say you have an extremely picky toddler or even elementary or high school child. Mm-hmm. What are some tips for expanding them above and beyond pasta? I called my daughter a pastararian because that's one of the few things she would eat. Chicken nuggets, PB&J.
Yeah, we're nuggetarians, I think, at home. I love that. Such a good question. And we here lovingly call those eaters, we don't say picky eaters, we say young eaters or student eaters, because as I mentioned, they're learning right now. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And there's a phrase that has always stuck with me that I love, that is to be courteous without catering. Or be considerate without catering, which means when you can, to send along something that they enjoy, but don't cater. So show them that you hear them by I always try to send one thing that I know that my sons enjoy. Even if they only eat that, it really is a signal to them that you see them, you hear them, and kind of like that pasta example that I gave, it just makes all of the other food seem a little bit more approachable if it's alongside something that they're really familiar with that gives them comfort. So we don't make 25 different meals, but we try to send along at least one thing every time that they enjoy, and just know that for a while, that might be the only thing that they eat. And the other thing is to not set the expectation that they're going to eat any or all of it, because that pressure actually works against us. It makes them less likely to try it. So if you just say, here you go, wipe your hands of it, they're going to be a lot more comfortable trying new things, knowing that there's not pressure to do that. So I just say, hang in there and try to reduce the pressure and the stress on everybody.
Fantastic.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. How about, how the mornings are so stressy, and sometimes when you're trying to get everybody ready and get out the door, and what are your tips for preparing some of the lunches the night before? What do you suggest are some options you could do the night before?
Yeah. So almost everything I shared today can be done the night before. I will say, I think one of the hangups is that we don't want to if you have something that needs to be refrigerated, you feel like you have to wait until the morning to do it. So I have actually put all of the things into the lunchbox, even if it's not a refrigerated item, and I put the whole lunchbox in the fridge. So even if I'm sending along like crackers or something, there's no reason that those can't go in the night before. The only thing that I really ever wait to, I say ever wait to, I wait to do a lot of things after like September 15th. It gets a little bonkers, but just sandwiches. Sandwiches I usually do in the morning because they get kind of mushy, but I would say most of these, put them right into the container. And if you're going to send anything from your leftovers from dinner, make sure you throw those right into the lunchbox. So that can really kind of save you time. I think those are my best tips. I don't know if you have anything to add, but that's really kind of what I try to do. But again, the system falls apart kind of quickly. So I get that it can be hard.
That's fantastic. And just to add real quickly, because we're at time here, a person asked about plastic alternatives instead of packing the lunch in plastic. There are silicone. I know the glass containers can be a little bit heavy for the smaller children, but silicone containers are a nice alternative as well. You can pack foods in.
And there are fabric bags with zippers that we love. So those are alternatives as well. So there's a lot of stuff out there now because it's so important to folks to have those alternatives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.